Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And tonight's show is going to be a fascinating one because we'll be talking about Toastmasters and what they're up to and who they are and all kinds of other stuff. And my guests are two senior manager level Toastmasters, Phyllis Harmon, thank you for coming on, and Leanna Lyndquist. I got that right. How you feeling?
Very well, thank you.
Good. And how are you?
I am raring to go. I'm glad to be here, and it's wonderful outside. I'm glad to be inside, where it's cooler.
You betcha, you betcha. All right. As you know, the first half of the show is about who you are, and I'll ask you some questions so that the viewers will have an idea where you're coming from when you give your talk about Toastmasters and what Toastmasters is up to. So, who shall I talk to first?
Talk to this awesome lady here named Leanna.
Leanna.
Gives me more time.
Let's see how it goes. Leanna, if I were to ask your best friend, who is Leanna, what would your best friend say? He or she would say, Leanna is what?
Oh, passionate,
Uh-huh.
a visionary,
Uh-huh.
can look down the road, see something wonderful, and work to make it happen.
That sounds good. You got a good best friend there.
I have a wonderful best friend.
And does she see you accurately?
Oh, most of the time.
Okay. And when and where were you born? Oh, you're a woman. I can't ask you when you were born.
No, you can't.
Where were you born?
I was born in Missoula, Montana.
That's right, yeah. Why were you born?
Why was I born?
Why does everyone always repeat that question?
Well, it's one I've never heard before.
And that's why I ask it. It gets you off guard.
Well, I was born because my grandmother wanted another granddaughter.
Okay, that's good. All right. Anything significant about your cultural or racial heritage that's worth repeating, or you plain old American white bread?
I'm just plain old American, or Montanan, as I say.
Montana. That's different than American. Yeah. Can you say something about your religious preference, or is that question out of bounds?
Oh, Protestant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And your formal education?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Montana State University.
Mm-hmm. And if I get sick, will you take care of me right here and now?
I will, absolutely.
Did you hear that? She promised.
I did.
And all your life you've been a nurse?
All my adult life, yes.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or what? A wife? Or?
I have a husband of 37 years.
37 years?
Mm-hmm.
He's put up with you all this time?
All this time.
Yeah. And children?
I have 2 children. I have a daughter that's in Seattle at the University of Washington, finishing her PhD.
Oh, wonderful.
And I have a son that's here in Portland, and he's in sales.
Okay. Are they going to see this show?
They just might.
Okay. You can tell them what you think of them. Look at camera 3 and tell them what you think of those 2 kids of yours.
Well, those 2 kids are wonderful. I can't imagine life without them. They bring a lot of interest and a lot of moments of pride. And it's great to have kids.
Okay. Would you comment about your political persuasion, left, right, or center, or is that an unfair question?
No, it's a fair question. I am conservative,
Mm-hmm.
probably a little centrist.
How can you be a nurse and be a conservative? You can yell at me anytime. This is to be sure you can have a chance to nail me. I'm being a smart ass.
Well, probably because I had to work real hard and put myself through college,
Uh-huh.
and that's how I was brought up in Montana. Was we take care of ourselves.
Okay.
We work hard.
Okay. Any memberships in social or civic organizations that are worth mentioning for the viewers?
Oh, right now it's primarily Toastmasters for me.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I belonged to the Oregon Medical Association Alliance, which is a physician spouses group. And that was a very big part of my life for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And I was on the board of the Friends of McLean House, a historic home in West Lynn that I helped to restore. And just various and sundry little organizations here and there.
Okay. Any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admired or admire today? Any names?
Right now, one of the people I admire most is Charles Krauthammer.
Charles Krauthammer, he's a columnist.
He is. He's a columnist
Uh-huh.
and a physician.
Yes.
He became a quadriplegic while he was in medical school, and he finished his training even though he was in a hospital bed for 14 months.
Well, how long ago was that? That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
It was in the early 70s
Yeah.
that happened. It's been a long time. He was 22 years old.
Then-
I'm reading his book right now, and it's very fascinating.
Okay. So why do you admire him? I look up to him.
I think he's a real clear thinker,
Uh-huh.
and he has a great way of just looking at the issues of the day and kind of synthesizing them down,
Mm-hmm.
make them understandable. And he doesn't mince words.
No,
And
I know he
think
doesn't.
He's got a witty sense of humor. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Shall we leave you for now and go over
You
to
should.
Phyllis? And where were you born?
I was born in what was eventually to become the Oregon City Mental Hospital in Oregon City.
Mental hospital.
Right. At the time it wasn't. It was a community, but they told me that soon after I was
Okay.
born,
Uh-huh.
they had to turn it over to a mental hospital.
Uh-huh.
I have no clue why.
See, she's ahead of me. Okay, no more surprises. Anything significant about your cultural or national heritage?
I come from Italians on one side and Germans on the other.
Mm-hmm.
Not great national friends. They tend to fight among themselves. The Italian, of course, is the very boisterous side of the family. The Italians are more to stand back and watch them and see what they're going to do next.
Uh-huh.
So it's an interesting mix because both of those tend to play a role in the way that I respond to things. So if you ask me something that's going to get my passions going, you may see a whole different person.
Okay. I remember in our meeting before I said something to you and you started blushing.
Yes, I
And
did
I
that.
commented about it and you blushed all the more. Let's get it going again. You were so pretty, like a tropical.
One thing that I have in my history way back
Uh-huh.
is I understand that one of my great-great-great-grandfathers came over on the Mayflower,
Really?
and that we had another great-great-great-grandfather who was a horse thief. So again, you've got both sides of that family going on there.
She's going to be hard to talk to, you know. I don't know what side you're going to be. I'll be talking to her anyhow. So, in a religious preference for you?
Well, I grew up as a Catholic.
So did I.
When I became about 18 or 19, I began to question some of the premises that I was taught growing up.
Yeah.
I'm definitely still a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
but I started looking at control. Who controls who and why? And that shaped a lot of the way that I think nowadays. And I think the older that I get, the more seasoned I like to say, the more broad-minded I become, knowing that there is more than one way to salvation. It doesn't have to be one focus. So I've become very broad-minded. Still go with my leanings when I was born as a Catholic Christian, but not Catholic anymore, just Christian. Still believe in that.
Do you have any of those memories of your knees getting tired from kneeling so much, or a hole in your chest from too many Maricopas?
What I remember, I was in high school. I took a non-Catholic boyfriend to church on Sunday. And all of a sudden I started seeing the Mass from a different perspective. I was no longer seeing it through my eyes, I was seeing it through his. And I thought, this constant jumping up and down, getting up and down, kneeling, standing up, kneeling down, must really be wearing on someone who doesn't understand the culture and the environment. And that's about the time that I started to step back and take a look at things. Very interesting transition.
Yeah.
I do remember spending a lot of time on my knees. They used to do that to us if we didn't behave ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
I was one of those who was on their knees a lot.
I know. I can tell. Yeah, and the nuns and I didn't. Anyhow, I was a rebellious kid. Never mind me for now. And you have a partner?
I have a husband. I've been married since 1967, which puts me close to 45, 47 years.
That's a long
I lost
time.
count. I lost count.
And children?
I have a daughter, lives somewhere in Montana. We raised her to be very independent. So she went off on her own. She has her 5 children that are keeping her extremely busy. So she's doing well for herself. I'm pleased with that.
You get to see the grandkids?
Yeah, no. She's running her own life, and
All
that's
right.
just fine.
All right. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, any of those worth mentioning, other than Toastmasters?
You caught me out. During my work years, the organization, I worked for a very large healthcare organization, and at one point I was head of their safety council for the entire West Coast. And we put together a lot of policies and best practices for the entire organization. Outside of working, taking care of family, that was my life until Toastmasters.
Toastmasters. And all these years you were working as a nurse?
Actually not. I don't like the sight of blood, but I did work on the administrative side. I worked in human resources for most of my life in one form or another. When I went to work for the organization I just mentioned, I was there for about 20 years, and I helped put injured workers back to work. That was mind-bending, because you get people like nurses who are injured, who could no longer have the bedside care that they were so used to doing. That instant gratification of someone saying thank you.
Sure.
They were faced with never having that again. So I would take them through a process where they would take a look at what their skill set was, and then we'd start down another path and say, okay, if you can do that here, look how you can transition it over here. And so I helped them to find new jobs.
It must have been quite a job, huh?
It was, and there were a lot of heartaches, not only from the injured workers, but from some of the outcomes. But there were others that were just absolute victories. So you live with the victories, and you reflect on those, and you think, how can I help someone else who doesn't have those opportunities be as victorious in their own right? And that was well worth all the 12-hour, 15-hour days I put in to help those folks. So
You're a people helper big time.
I love it.
And
Yes.
so are you. I have a special feeling for you, being a retired clinical psychologist, so I know what that's like to see the results.
Absolutely.
And your political persuasion? Are you left, right, center, off the...
I started out fairly right-wing, but again, as my horizons have broadened, I've become more broad-minded and more centrist, I think. I see more possibilities now. And one of the things that I hold dear is that no matter what persuasion people are, they are trying to help their community. And if they're out there trying to help make their communities better, then who am I to tell them that they're wrong to do what they're doing, whatever it happens to be. They've got a good heart. They're working to make things better. That's my philosophy. So is that centrist? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
I'm all right with that one then.
You're all right with that one.
Worried about that one.
How about heroes? People you look up to or admire?
Right now, my favorite, the one that I quote a lot and who I try to get other people aware of, is Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is for me, he's a leadership guru, being as how I'm in a leadership position.
Uh-huh.
What caught me about him was his very first TED Talk on why. If you know what your why is, then you can speak to why you do what you do and the way that you think. And in doing that, then you can inspire other people to see your point of view. I just finished his book on why. I can't remember the whole title.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely a fascinating work. The next one that I'm reading from him is called Why Leaders Eat Last. And he's got a TED Talk on that also.
Say a few words about TED Talk.
A TED Talk, and
My
you're going
viewers are not
to
so
make
sophisticated.
me try to remember the acronym, and I can't. TED is an acronym of something.
Yes.
But
That's okay.
it's new ideas, something that people should know about. Again, it's revealing yourself and what you know and what you think would be something that people need to hear.
So the
And that's
speaker
what he
is
did.
putting that out there for people to consider.
Yes,
New ideas.
Yes.
Stimulating.
yes.
Mhm.
It's very, very interesting.
So, okay. We can probably take a break here and then go into the major part of the show, but I want to talk some more about your experiences as a nurse. You have a story or two about that? Anything comes to mind now that, as you think back into your career as a nurse, that is worth talking about, that the viewers would be interested in?
Well, probably one of my most memorable experiences happened not long after I was in nursing school, and I worked in the newborn ICU, and that's when we started the transport team. And I was on that. You know how big Montana is?
Yeah.
Well, in the entire state, we had 2 intensive care units for infants, one way down in Billings and one in Great Falls where I was.
Uh-huh.
And when there were premature babies born or babies with heart problems that were just in critical condition, then we would go and get them. And it was always 2 nurses, and we flew a lot in little 6-seater airplanes. And the pilot that used to take us flew for the power company. So he used to fly low over power lines. And he was a great pilot. And we had some real interesting trips. We landed one time in an Indian reservation, and they brought the baby in the back of a station wagon. And there were just a lot of memories, not so great outcomes, and some real wonderful outcomes. And of course, that whole field has just grown amazingly since those days. But those were very memorable experiences for me.
And it was important that you were there.
Absolutely.
Win. How about you? Any memories of your career, probably in the office?
Well, again, I put injured workers back to work. I have a story of a young lady who had arch problems in her feet. She could not walk. She was off work for probably 3 years.
Really?
They had a position where she could sit most of the time. It would be as a home health nurse. In order for her to do this work, she would have to find a way to get to people's houses, because this was, you go to their homes, you take care of whatever wounds, whatever it is that they needed, and then you go on to the next one. State of Oregon has a wonderful program for employer at injury program, and they have at their disposal $25,000 per injured worker to bring them back to work if somebody will give them a job.
Mm-hmm.
I called our home health agency in Medford, and I said, I have this wonderful nurse. She has done home health before. She's ready to go back to work. State of Oregon bought her a car. They bought her every single piece of equipment that she needed to go back to work. That was one of my victories. She was outstanding in her field, as it were. Little pun there. But the community coming together to allow her to come back to work after 3 years, and then providing the resources so that she could once again feel like she was a valued member of the community, just filled my heart with joy. Those are the victories that I like to talk about.
I can see it in your eyes right now. So I bet it sounds like you've had some interesting things happening in your careers,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And you're still helping people. Probably in the second half of the show, we'll be talking about how Toastmasters is instrumental in you helping the community and doing social activist sorts of things. So let's take a break for now in the control room here, and when we come back, we'll talk about Toastmasters a little more and some other stuff, all right? Okay, we are back. Thank you for staying tuned. And for your first-time viewers who were not here when the show started, I got to tell you about what the show is about. Conversations with Dr. Don that you're watching is an ongoing series of standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, wonderful kind of individuals, and we'll talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Toastmasters and my two guests and their activities in Toastmasters and their positions and positions of management in Toastmasters, and the kind of work you're doing right now that's of real value to the community. And there's some funny alphabets, letters at the end of your names. I had to Google those to see what they meant. Will you see what those mean for me?
Certainly. The ones that are after my name
Yes.
is Distinguished Toastmaster, DTM.
DTM. I'd never seen that before.
What that means is that we have completed how many speeches? I keep forgetting, over 60? Over 60 speeches. We've done workshops. We have led in all different types of events. We have done what else?
That's
We've done
a
a
lot.
high performance project management type projects. Because we're building both sides. We're building both the pillar of communications and the pillar of leadership. And we do this through a series, ongoing series of projects. And at the end of that path, you start as a competent communicator, and the end of the mountain, top of the mountain, is the Distinguished Toastmaster.
And who awards you that designation? The organization?
Toastmasters International. And
Okay.
they are an organization that is in 122 countries.
Okay.
We have over 244,000 members in over 14,000 clubs around the world.
How long has Toastmasters been around?
They've been in business since 1926, I believe. It started by
26, that's a while.
several gentlemen after the war got together and wanted to practice their presentations, because just coming back from the war, they were being asked to speak before organizations about what happened. They wanted to get better at that, so they formed their little group at the YMCA in the basement, and they started talking to each other and giving each other their presentations. That was in 1926. From there, it is mushroom.
What town was this in? What city was it in?
Do you remember, Leanna?
Now, when Toastmasters was born, it was actually in California.
Yeah, it was
but
California.
The roots were in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And after your name is a DTM also?
It is.
Okay. Yeah, you're smart when you say that. I appreciate it. I should have been more active in Toastmasters years ago myself, as I'm listening to you and seeing how you light up when you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's go to our cheat sheet here, the questions you sent me. The world's largest Toastmaster meeting will take place on Labor Day weekend at Pioneer Courthouse Plaza here in Portland, Saturday, August 30th. You want to say a few words about that?
I'd like to let Leanna do that. She's a Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, and this is her baby.
Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, and your formal position is?
I'm the District Governor.
District Governor. Okay, Lieutenant Governor of Marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me hear you.
Well, the world's largest Toastmasters meeting, as you said, will take place at Portland Pioneer Square. It's going to be from 9:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, day.
And typically, a Toastmasters meeting lasts for an hour. Well, our first one will start at 9:30, and every hour on the half hour will be a whole new meeting, a whole different cast of characters, and we're going to have different themes. So, for instance, 1 hour is going to focus on job interview skills.
Uh-huh.
Another hour will focus on storytelling. Maybe one on entertainment. So people can see all the different possibilities of Toastmasters. See the different skills, and we've got some young people that belong to a Toastmasters group for young people, and we'll have a couple of those kids there to show off their speaking skills.
And you, as time goes by, you see the improvement in their ability to talk to groups and to stand before a crowd and present.
Absolutely. And this is going to be interesting because we haven't done an event quite like this before. So we'll have the big amphitheater, and we'll have microphones, and our Toastmasters will be giving speeches that they typically give in the club setting, which might be 20 to 25 people, and now they will be in Portland's living room speaking to a whole crowd.
How big a crowd do you expect? Any idea?
Oh,
That's a
millions,
big square.
Millions.
So it'll be broadcast at the same time it's going on?
No, we're going to be we're just a live event.
Uh-huh.
Everybody to come, drop in, stay as long as you wish.
Okay.
We are hoping to get some coverage.
Yeah, I think we'll have some news channels there, but at this very moment we don't have plans to broadcast that, but that's a good idea.
Okay.
We'll investigate that.
Will you two be have a time slot where you'll be talking to the group?
Leanna has me down as one of the Toastmasters of the day. And of course, as District Governor, I will be there all day in the crowd for the most part and talking about the organization and the changes to lives that it can bring. So I'm hoping to inspire people and send them towards the tables where we have all of the club information and talk to them about.
Do you talk from memory, or do you have notes there, or a teleprompter, or what?
I don't need notes. I don't need notes. I could talk about Toastmasters till the cows come home.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we do a lot of large events. One of our favorite, I think, is the PCC Cascades Fair that happens April, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Portland Community College.
Correct. With
Cascade campus.
all the folk that are looking for work go through, and they talk to all the vendors. Well, we position ourselves just outside the door so we see everybody. And we do end up with a lot of people who join our clubs because they see the potentiality of what it could do for them. That's fun. So I'm expecting to get a lot of that out of the downtown event that Leanna is
So it
putting
sounds
on.
like it's going to be a great event, yeah.
Absolutely.
So you got any stories for me about people who join Toastmasters and their evolution and development into becoming better speakers and better Toastmasters?
Yes, there are always stories. Let me pick through the brain here. I have one that I really enjoy. In one of the Toastmasters clubs that I belong to, can I give them a plug?
Of course.
Wallmasters International, one of the best clubs in the district, 15 years President's Distinguished.
Uh-huh.
We had a physician come through the door. One of the things that we do in Toastmasters is we try to get rid of the filler words, the ahs, the ums, and every club does it a little bit different. In our club, every time you say ah and you get squeaked, because it's that instant remembering that, oh, I'm not supposed
What's
to
a
do
squeak?
that.
They squeak something?
It's a squeaker toy, and it goes squeak.
Okay.
Well, this doctor, and by the way, his name was Don also. So what Dr. Don did is we gave him an impromptu question. And of course he came in, he was very full of himself. He knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
He started to talk, and the brain was not connecting with the mouth, but the ahs and the ums were coming out, and I kept squeaking him. And he kept giving me these evil looks because he didn't want to hear that squeaker. Within 3 weeks, he had scrubbed them from his language.
In 3 weeks?
In 3 weeks, he had scrubbed them. And he went on to be a fabulous speaker. First, he had to get past the point that he didn't know everything.
What else did you do to him to get him to give it up like that?
That's
Is it a
all he
squeaker
did.
toy?
It's just the squeaker. It's that instant smack
Uh-huh.
that does it. Other clubs don't do that, but at Wallmasters we've found it to be very effective. One of the things that I really like about Toastmasters is, like I said, I could go on forever,
Please do.
is someone who comes through the door, they come in because they know they need to improve their communication skills for whatever reason, scared to death to get up in front of an audience.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's a room full of people who really envelop you like a family, it scares them. Give them 2 to 3 months of getting up little bits at a time, and you start to see their spine start to stand taller, and their confidence builds. And that's the joy, is when they get that confidence up, then they can talk to an audience, they can look right at them, and they can be very passionate about it. But first you have to help them build that confidence and let them know that we're here to help. It's the best self-improvement group I've ever seen.
Okay. What other ways do you have besides a squeaker toy to get them to improve and get better?
Well, Leanna, what are some of the other ways that they do that?
Well, one of the hallmarks of the Toastmaster program is called an evaluation or feedback.
Okay.
So every time a member gives a speech, it's from a manual that Toastmasters International provides, and there are objectives for that speech. And they have an evaluator, and the evaluator listens carefully to the speech as it's delivered, and they read the objectives and the different questions, and they provide an answer written, but then they get up in front of the group and they have an opportunity to give feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And we propose it's called the sandwich effect.
The sandwich effect.
The sandwich effect.
Makes me hungry.
You start out by talking about what they did well, that you really liked, that they did well. Then you provide an opportunity for them to do this even better the next time. And then you end with something positive about their speech. So perhaps it might be eye contact. You delivered it so well, but you looked at the floor the entire time. I think it could have been so much better if you had looked around at the audience. So just a piece of advice that they can apply the next time they get up and give a speech. And that's how we grow.
So you ever terrify any speakers and they run off the stage?
I've heard stories about that, but I personally have never experienced that because we're a supportive environment.
Yeah.
We don't bring people in to tear them to shreds. We bring people in to build up their confidence.
And it's all volunteers, and
It is.
Totally.
you don't have to pay any money?
You do. There's always a fee to something, but it's the least expensive self-improvement program on the face of the earth for $72 a year.
Is that
You
all?
get, that's all it is. $72 a year for this wonderful, every week learning. I can't, it's like family, where you go visit your favorite relatives and they help you. And they help you to grow, and they help you to see how good you really are. With a little bit of improvement, let's try this next time. And I'm speechless because it is such a great feeling to come away from one of those meetings. When you go into a meeting, the energy it's the static energy in there because everybody's excited to be there. It's just one of the most wonderful feelings that I've ever had. It's hard to explain.
Sure.
But someone once told me that I belong to the Church of Toastmasters. I'm afraid they're right.
The Church of Toastmasters. Are they going to like you saying that? What about the breakdown, males and females, men and women? Yeah, more men than women and more women than men, or what?
I don't know. Every club is different.
Mm-hmm.
My club, sometimes we've gone through, we've had a lot more females than men, and then we'll get an influx of men. So it varies from one club to the next.
How about age groups?
You know, Toastmasters did some interesting statistics. And to answer what you had just asked about the gender, I think it was about 45% were women and 55% were men. And this was done 2 years ago, 3 years ago. As far as the ages, the target market right now, of course, is 20 to 35-year-olds. I would say on an average, our groups are what, about 45, 55, somewhere in there. So they're starting to look at the younger audience because that's the future. And they're starting to target market towards them.
How many politicians or legislators or people of that level of accomplishment were Toastmasters at one time or another?
Several, and the only one that comes to mind right now was the governor of Hawaii. We've had several congressmen that were Toastmasters. And of course, I can't remember their names right off. It's all in the literature that Toastmasters has online. We have had a lot of corporate leaders, entrepreneurs who were Toastmasters. The gal that started Fields Cookies, Mrs. Fields Cookies, Peter Coors from Coors Beer,
Yeah.
and several others.
That's some pretty important names.
Yeah. Was it Schwarzkopf? I can't remember. But all the way through government, we've had Toastmasters. You bet. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds delightful what you're up to and what you're going through right now, yeah. Tell me some more stories about your Toastmasters adventures and your meetings and personal experiences, either from your nursing career or from Toastmasters.
Well, one of my favorite Toastmasters stories that we are very proud of in our district is every year when we have our annual convention, and that's in August. And this year, Phyllis and I are going to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for that convention.
Wow.
We have what's called the World Champion in Public Speaking. And twice a year, our clubs have contests. The one contest called the International Speech Contest. We take a winner from our district, and a district is a geographic entity.
Sure.
And for us, it's about 170 clubs. We choose a winner at our own conferences, and that winner is going to go to the International Speech Contest, or the International Convention. And once they get there, they are going to compete. Now, they've already bypassed around 250,000 people, but now when they get there, they're going into semifinals. And there's about 81 in the semifinals, and 9 of them go to the big stage and actually compete for the World Champion of Public Speaking.
Oh, man.
In 2012, we were in Florida, and Ryan Avery from Portland, Oregon, won that. And he is the youngest winner in history, and he is 25 years old.
Wow.
And it has entirely changed his life. He's now a professional speaker, trainer, author. He has traveled the world. And his father encouraged him to join Toastmasters because out of college, he used the language that a lot of the young people do. You like? Like.
Yeah.
Well, like. But his father gave him that advice. Paid off for him.
So about how long is a typical speech?
5 to 7 minutes.
Is that all? Heavens.
When you get further into the program and you do advanced manuals, then there may be some specialty ones that would be longer. But on average, 5 to 7 minutes is what speeches are.
What kind of topics do people talk about?
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want. They get to choose the topics. What Toastmasters does is provides the framework. Leanna mentioned that earlier. For instance, maybe this time you're working on vocal variety. You choose the topic, you give your speech. We're looking for the highs, the lows, the softness, the loudness, whatever it happens to be. Or it could be change of pitch. It could be a bunch of different ideas on what you consider to be vocal variety. And at the end of that 5 to 7 minute speech, then you're evaluated on how well you did. So you get to practice all of the things that you've ever wanted to do in a 5 to 7 minute framework. You choose the topic. It's fun. I've talked about all kinds of things.
For example, what's one of your favorite ones?
One of my favorite speeches was one that I gave to one of the youth clubs, because we try to grow our next leaders. And it came from a quote by Michael Natoro, who was our past international president of Toastmasters International. And it caught my heart. So I built a speech around it for the kids. And what he said was that words count and ideas matter. What you say and how you say it is too important to leave to chance. What you say and how you say it shapes your hopes, your dreams, and even your destiny. And I took what he said and I built a speech for the kids. I crafted it all about subatomic humans and how we're all connected at the subatomic level. So using his words, if you say something to me that hurts me, then that hurt doesn't stay with me. It goes to everybody in my circle. So it's very important that you choose your words carefully, because words count and ideas matter. That was my favorite speech.
I bet it was well received.
It was. These are all teenagers. They're used to bullying each other. So I gave them a message that they shouldn't be because it affects everyone. So.
How about yours? One of your favorite speeches?
Oh, the one that comes to mind is called my icebreaker. And your icebreaker is the very first speech you ever give. And typically it's about you to introduce yourself to the club. And just to get up there and see, what do you have? And mine was everything I learned in life, I learned in Montana.
Really? And you went on for 5 or 7 minutes?
I did. There was a lot.
Do you remember it now?
Oh, I learned things like how to shovel snow.
Uh-huh.
How to,
The shoveling snow, just scoop it up, and is there some art to it?
There absolutely is. There is. And we shoveled a lot of snow, let me tell you.
Imagine takes a topic as simple or prosaic as that and make an interesting speech out of it.
It really is interesting what people do. And like Phyllis said, she took somebody's quote. People talk about their travels. We get a lot of people that come to Toastmasters to improve their presentation skills that are required of them at work. So they come and practice on us and maybe do a PowerPoint and see how smooth it goes. And then we give them feedback. So they can, how well did we understand what they said? Well, if we don't understand it, probably other people won't either. Traveling, hobbies, about children, just absolutely anything. One of my sayings is every time I hear a little snippet or a little story about something, I always say, well, there's a speech in that. Because really there is.
Okay. When you're evaluating a person giving a speech, I guess you're looking at their eyes and their face and their posture and all those kinds of things, huh? Everything else involved.
You are, but you're looking beyond that, because one of the things as an evaluator, you are, as the evaluator, are learning to listen and to be discerning, because you don't want to get up and hurt someone's feelings. Again, that's not what we're about. So you learn how to say it well so that they accept what you're saying, because if you hurt someone's feelings, they're done.
Yeah.
They're never going to listen to anything more that you have to say. So as Leanna was saying earlier, you learn how to say it, which is a skill that employers can now use when they're talking to their employees, or employees talking to employees, or moms and dads talking to their children. One of my favorite stories, if you want to hear one more story.
Please.
One of our Toastmasters has a teenage son who has a terrible problem with putting together a sentence so that it makes sense, a cogent sentence. Problems with grammar. So this Toastmaster was sitting at the kitchen table reading or whatever he was doing, and his son came up to him behind him and he says, "Dad," he says, "I have this speech or this presentation that I was supposed to write, and would you help me with it?" Dad says, "Sure." And as he's got his pen in hand and he's marking that paper and he's marking that paper and he's marking that paper, he sees his son backing further and further back against the wall, and the arms go up. And suddenly the Toastmaster realized that he needed to give him an evaluation. So what he did is he started out, let's call the kid Mike. "Mike, I like the way that you put the structure of your paper together. I like the way that at the beginning you introduced your topic. Now, I think there may be an opportunity here for you to maybe say this a little better." And as he's doing this, his son is coming up and starting to get over the top of his shoulder. And by the time they got done with this evaluation, his son had the dictionary out, they were working through the grammar, and the kid went to school. He didn't get an A, but he definitely got a C. That was the first C that that child had gotten that year. So it's all in how you apply what you learn. And he did it well for his son. So you can use this stuff anywhere.
So you're learning how to listen.
You've got to learn to listen.
Mm-hmm. Someone said, the kindest thing you can do for me is to listen and to look at me and be aware that I'm listening to you. And that's the ultimate expression of love, to listen to someone with no judgment or evaluation or consideration.
Totally agree.
Okay, we've got about 4 or 5 more minutes. What else can we talk about?
Outside of Toastmasters?
Yes.
Is there life outside of Toastmasters?
You got me turned on to it. At this stage in my life, I don't want to go and start something new again. I get enough projects going already. As you can see, I'm running out of steam. But it sure sounds intriguing.
One of the areas that I want to start exploring, and again, I'm sorry, this is still Toastmasters, but
That's
we
okay.
we have such an opportunity to help people in need. We have a lot of service people that are coming back that have stories that they need to let out.
People in the service.
In the service, people that come back from being in combat, and they have no one to tell their stories to. We are starting to put together Toastmasters clubs all over the nation for returning servicemen.
That's what I want to hear about.
So that they have an opportunity to start building confidence back in themselves, and at the same time let out that steam to a group of people that have been there and that understand what they're all about.
And you're having some success with that.
We are. We are.
That's really commendable.
I think it's something that we need to do. We've not done that here in Oregon yet in District 7. Other districts have, and the service people talk about what a boon it is for them to finally be able to let loose some of the stuff that they hold back.
And you
from
have some
families.
evidence that this is useful. And
Yes, there's lots of empiric evidence out there on the web. Of course, who doesn't go to the web nowadays to do their research?
Yeah.
But yes, it definitely is. At one time here in Oregon, we had a club for folks who had brain injuries so that they could learn how to communicate again and get on with their lives. A lot of what we do is exactly that, giving people the confidence to again step beyond themselves and get out there. Right now, starting in September again, I'll be working with WorkSource Oregon. Some time ago, a few of us put together a elevator pitch workshop to teach kids coming out of college how to get their first jobs. Well, I've adapted it to folks who are in transition, and I've been taking that to WorkSource Oregon. I just told them that I was available again, and I'm starting again back giving those classes in September so that people learn what they need to take before an employer. And it all comes out of Toastmasters. That's where we put this together to begin with. So there's a lot of community service that goes on underneath that helps support people through Toastmasters. It's the organization that allows us to do this.
So what percentage of your waking day is spent on Toastmasters and Toastmasters activities? Or do you work for nonprofits? Or?
It is a nonprofit. We're not paid, and my husband says I spend way too much time. So I don't want to give him any more fodder.
But you don't have a job that pays a regular salary anymore.
I do not. I retired from my organization, the last one I talked about, in 2010. So 2010, 2012, whenever it was. And I've been full bore at Toastmasters ever since.
And do you do anything other than Toastmasters in your life?
Well, I go to the beach, and that's fun.
Okay, I think we're running out of time, so let's let you talk to the viewers some final thoughts or comments you have for the viewers about what we talked about or anything else. And which camera shall we have her look at? Number 3. Look at the camera and say to the viewers, hello viewers. And
Hello viewers. If you've not gotten the idea yet that I am totally involved in Toastmasters, then
No,
Don's going to have to bring me back for another session. It's great to have this venue that allows us to talk to you. If you're interested in this organization or one similar, please get on the web and do your research. Find out what works best for you, for me, and for over 242,000 people. It's Toastmasters.
Leanna.
We have clubs all over Oregon, and we invite you to visit Toastmasters International website, plug in your zip code, and find a club near you, and just go visit. Clubs are happy to have you. You can visit as many as you wish until you find one that just feels right.
Okay, we better stop then because my director's going to yell at me. It's time to close now. I want you to get your pens and pencils handy in case there's something you want to see on the screen. You want to make a note to yourself. To watch my shows on the web, Google Don Baham YouTube. There's hundreds of shows there that I put together over the years. You'll find some of interest to you. And I want to tell you about the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. I think our civil liberties are in jeopardy now because of how our government is behaving in Washington, D.C., and we want to protect our civil liberties by going to the ACLU. And a show that I enjoy very much, the Populist Dialogues. A friend of mine produces that show, and you want to watch his interviews and see what he's talking about, AFD videos. And I got to tell you to remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too, and to you too, and to you too, and to the Toastmasters. Thanks again for watching. Good night.